Okay, so every offseason there are a lot of contracts that get signed. Many end up being very good contracts, especially with the way the cap continues to rise, but not all of them end up that way. So these are the 10 contracts that I would say are the worst in football. Now, the thing about a bad football contract is it doesn't really hurt you the way like a bad basketball or especially a bad hockey contract can hurt you, because just the years aren't that many, and usually there's ways to get out of these contracts because they're not fully guaranteed. But there still are some contracts that I would say either hurt the team or could end up hurting the team. So let's get into the list. There's not a ton, so actually the first couple are ones that I'm going to say could actually be good contracts, but I just have concerns about. So number 10, I am going with DJ Moore, who the Chicago Bears gave a big deal to after they traded for. Obviously, he was part of the Bryce Young trade, part of the Caleb Williams trade, and all of that. And the reason why he's making the list is ultimately, so you look at his contract details, the next 2 years he's going to be making about $25 million and then about $29 million. They then could get out of the contract after that year for just $8 million in dead cap, or they could pay him another $28 million for each of the next 3 years, but he probably won't make it to the end of that contract. But that's okay. If you have to cut a player at a certain point, that's not the end of the world. To me, the biggest issue with this contract is him and Caleb Williams just didn't really play well together. And that's the concern, is in a vacuum, this isn't horrible money to give up to DJ Moore, but if he doesn't connect with your star quarterback, when you're giving up big, superstar level quarterback, wide receiver money for the next 2 years for a guy who maybe doesn't fit well. But again, if he plays like DJ Moore years past in a Ben Johnson scheme, well, then it'll look like a totally fine contract, if not an outright good one. So that's why it's number 10. Number 9, I am going with Jordan Love, who was the, I believe was the highest paid quarterback in football for a slight period of time before Dak Prescott took it over. If not, he was second highest. But $55 million a year for Jordan Love. This is a bit of a backloaded contract. I will say there are ways out of this, but not for the next 3 years. The fourth year, you could get out of it if you want to. His cap hit's going to be $75 million in 2028, but you could, if you wanted to, save about $60 million by cutting him. That might be, I doubt they would cut him, but that might be a restructure situation if things don't work out. But ultimately, I don't think Love is a bad quarterback or anything, but he's been so inconsistent, and you kind of need him to be like a great quarterback for this contract to work. I'll also kind of just put him in as a lot of quarterbacks are in this situation, right? I'm not going to put a ton of quarterbacks on this list, but there's a lot who are kind of like Love, getting top of the line money, but might not necessarily be that player, at least not yet. But again, why he's lower on the list, Love is still, he's 27, but he's young in terms of how much he's played football. So maybe you could see him kind of hitting his stride with a fully healthy year next year. Let's hope for the best with him. Number 8 is Brian Burns. In this section, we're going to categorize as the players who are good players who are probably just making a bit too much money to make it fully work. Brian Burns, a guy who signed a average of $28 million per year for a 5-year deal after getting traded from the Panthers to the Giants. And again, is a very good player, but given the way this contract structure is worked, out, you're essentially paying him for each of the next 3 years. This next year, they're only paying him $17 million, but then it's going to jump up to $35 million for each of the next 2 years. And even if they cut him after that, you're still looking at another $11 million in dead cap. So again, very good player. I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze with him. Number 7 is, interestingly enough, one that just got signed, Milton Williams to the New England Patriots. And listen, they kind of felt like they had to overpay to get good players, and Williams is a good player, but he's also a rotational interior guy who's a pass rush specialist, not the best defender, and he's going to essentially be making, on average $26 million per year. Another guy who I don't know if he will make it to the end of his contract, but next year his cap hit's going to be $14 million. It will then balloon up to $30 million each of the next 3 seasons. You could get out of that after the second season if you wanted to, but then you're still looking at double-digit million in dead cap, which you don't want to do. So, yeah, again, good player, just think he's probably a bit overpaid. Number 6, I'm going Dan Moore Jr., the tackle that the Titans signed from the Steelers. A solid tackle, he's not a bad player, but they definitely gave him surprisingly a lot of money, $20 million a year for a 4-year deal, which was a bit of a shock when it happened. I actually don't hate the thought process with Tennessee. I think they just figured, like, yeah, we're overpaying for a tackle because we want a good tackle to help out our young quarterback. Like, fine. Like, is this a perfect situation? No, but we need to develop Cam Ward. You could get out of this after 2 years with just about $13 million in dead cap. That's an option that you can decide to go with if you want to, or just keep paying him the extra. I think he'll probably end up playing 3 years and then get cut would be my guess, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, again, fine player. Just again, sometimes you can be a fine player and the contract isn't great. Next up, I'm going Jawan Taylor at number 5, another offensive lineman. He is the right tackle for the Chiefs. Now, the good news is he's almost done with this deal. There's 2 years left. His cap hits $27 million each of these next 2 years, though, so that's the downside. Now, next year, they could cut him and save $20 million of that $27 million he's owed. You have to assume either that's going to happen or a restructure, a massive restructure is going to happen. And I don't mean the restructure where you just give someone more money and then bring the cap hit down 1 year and have it higher the next year. I mean, like a new deal, basically. But yeah, I mean, again, you're paying $27 million for a tackle who just isn't a great tackle. So, like, I never understood this contract when it was signed. I still don't understand it now. It's not a good deal, in my opinion. Number 4, I am going with Dak Prescott, who I still decided to go with another quarterback here, as a lot of the quarterbacks I kind of threw all the quarterbacks in with Jordan Love as like, these are the it's not always the best idea to do this kind of thing. But for Dak Prescott, it's pretty crazy how there still has yet to be a quarterback who has gotten more money than him. He is still number 1 on the list. Usually every year, someone's getting outbid, but he set the market significantly higher than that with his $60 million per year deal. His cap hit currently is for this next year is going to be $50 million, then 74, then 68, then 78, and finally a $10 million void year deal. And if you want to get out of this deal, like, there's not really a moment where you could until 2028, the last year of the deal. It's a 4-year deal that is just kicking in this year, and essentially he's enough of it's guaranteed in the way it's structured. You're essentially getting 3 years of it. Again, Prescott's a fine quarterback, but it just feels like this really limits your ceiling, paying a solid quarterback so much money that it's just going to be hard to compete with the other best teams in the league. His current, he's going to be making over a quarter of the cap in 2026. That's just crazy. Number 3 is Trevor Lawrence. I talked about not trying to not go too quarterback heavy. I will say the top 4 are quarterbacks, so spoiler alert there. I decided to go for Lawrence, who I still have not completely given up on just yet. I still think there is potential. And I guess the one thing you do look at is the way it is structured. He's your quarterback through the 2027 season. So this year, the next year, and the following year, if you cut him, you would actually be spending significantly more money the way it is structured than just letting him play out those 3 years. The following year, you could cut him, but you're still paying $21.5 million, so you're probably not going to do that either. Realistically, the earliest he's going to get cut is if he completely stinks, then in 2028, or if he's okay in 2029. They need him to get better. Now, the good news is he's a young player who could get better, similar to Jordan Love, right? So I think that's what you hold out hope for. But given the injury history and just he hasn't played great and just how long you're stuck in this deal, like, they need this to hit. And if it doesn't, they're just going to be stuck rebuilding for the next 5 years, basically. Next up is Kirk Cousins. I mean, listen, we thought that this might have been an overpay at the time when we all thought Kirk Cousins was a pretty good quarterback. Now that he is a backup quarterback, they're really in trouble. Where, again, his cap hit this year as a backup quarterback is $40 million. If they cut him, they'd have to pay him $75 million this year, which you could argue, is it still worth it to just do what the Seahawks did with what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, get all that dead cap onto, or at least most of the dead cap onto one season? The issue of trying to do something like that is you try to get it all in one season. The Falcons would then be over the cap and would have to restructure other deals. So there's essentially no reason to do it. You might as well keep a backup quarterback on the roster, although now there's talks about him getting traded and all that stuff, and we'll see. The next year, if they cut him in 2026, they still owe him $35 million. So getting him for next year, which you'll still do because his cap hit would be $57 million, but essentially you drafted Michael Penix Jr., you hit that out of the park, you got 4 years of cheap rookie production and then a 5th-year option, which will be not quite as cheap. Essentially 3 out of those 4 years are just wasted because of the Kirk Cousins contract. And so you have one of the best advantages in sports, and they weren't able to take advantage because of this contract. It's just unfortunate for the Falcons. Number one is the guy who, I mean, it's obvious, right? Deshaun Watson is the quarterback who fully guaranteed contract, so he has 2 years left on his current deal, and that's not to mention that there are actually void years in place. The way it's structured actually is worse than you would want if you're a Browns fan, which part of me wonders if, is it worth it to cut him? Although you can't even cut him because he's injured. You can't cut an injured player. So he has technically 2 years left on his deal. $35.9 million this next year. Okay, that's livable. That's not the worst thing in the world. $80 million next season is what his cap hit is going to be. If they cut him in that year, they would actually owe him $131 million. Why? Because he has void years. So he has $27 million cap hit in 2027, $18 million in 2028, and another $8 million in 2029. So it's not just that you're going to be screwed for, somehow in the last year of his deal, you still can't cut him, really. You have to just wait it out. I mean, you could and probably should just try and get all that dead money as early as possible, and so you can move on quicker. But yeah, I mean, it's completely screwed the Browns over for these past few years. It's completely put them into cap hell, and now they have to figure out what else they're going to do. This is part of why I thought they should have traded Myles Garrett, just to try and get a kickstart on the rebuild, but ultimately not what they did. But yeah, it's completely sunk a franchise that was a playoff contender before he got there. One of the worst contracts in sports, which is, definitely, you talk about the karma of it all and all that, but this has to be number one. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.